Hello everyone, so today's video is actually going to be something different that I usually cover, and I hope you guys actually enjoy this sort of video. I thought it would be interesting to talk about and discuss with you guys. This is going to be my first impressions of the game, and probably my last, because I don't know how far I'm actually going to go into this game. But I've been playing Tower of Fantasy. The reason why is because I seen ads of it. I was like, oh, it looks like a Genshin clone, obviously. Play it. So, seen a little bit of gameplay before actually playing the game for myself because of other content creators or streamers. I thought the gameplay was like, oh, it's literally like Genshin. It's literally a whole clone of it. My initial thoughts of the game was like, oh, I'm probably not going to enjoy this game at all because, I wasn't really a big fan of Genshin Impact. And I'm not saying Genshin Impact is a horrible game. I understand a lot of people love the game. It's incredibly popular and a lot of people really just enjoy the game for what it is despite the whole gacha system. The thing that caught my eye with Tower of Fantasy is not of how it's a Genshin clone, or not because it's an open world game, and not because of how it's literally like, oh, Breath of the Wild and blah blah. No, it's none of that. What actually intrigued me the most is that developers were focusing on it being an MMO. Now, people could argue whether it's not really like an MMO, or you could say it's a light MMO. Whether or not you guys consider it, technically it is, and they focus a lot of the stuff for multiplayer. And what I like about this is not only it actually has good single player content like how you would normally have in Genshin, but it's also you're able to have this shared world. So whatever quest you're doing, whether it is story or side quests, you're gonna see like other people roaming around doing their thing, or potentially maybe just following you and helping you out and slay these other monsters. And also there's other things like world quests in the game, just like any other MMO, where you could literally team up with the whole lobby and fight this particular monster. But things like that of what I just described, I really like those in MMOs, especially how in Genshin I would have, I think, enjoyed Genshin way more if I was able to play with my friends and family, with that game a lot. And this game, again, primarily focuses on multiplayer, but not only that, there's also a lot of like single player stuff. And yes, just like Genshin, there's some moments, in Tower of Fantasy where it is very restricted at certain points of the game, and you're not going to see anyone when doing these quests. But for the most part, again, it focuses on multiplayer, and that's what I care about the most. And there's a lot of stuff you could do in co-op, or again playing with other people in these certain quests, which I haven't really got into yet, but I definitely seen some gameplay, and I was only able to solo these certain dungeons and whatnot on my own, because I don't really know how to invite others to my own particular lobby, or just matchmake with other people to join these certain quests. So I didn't really done the big multiplayer stuff. I've been kind of going through this whole MMO solo, but again, for the most part, I've been having fun, and I'll share my story of how the dungeons are and whatnot in terms of its gameplay. But I think you guys are asking why am I so intrigued with this game, and it's because it's literally doing what Genshin couldn't do. And what I disliked about Genshin was, again, how they handled multiplayer, but it was also the fact of how Genshin's combat, I wasn't, later on throughout the game, it just started to feel stale, because to me, there's not a lot of physical combat. I understand the game is completely different with its combat. It's all about creating chain reactions, your elemental chain reactions and all this other stuff, and having all these other characters. And again, comes to a whole different topic, and that's the problem I have with gacha games, because there's certain paywalls if you want to enjoy the game or have the game to its fullest. Or we're just gonna go into a whole different topic, which I don't want to. But yes, basically I didn't really enjoy Genshin for its combat. I think the game is good overall, if you're playing it casually, because of the amount of content you're consuming, which is the same feeling I have with Tower of Fantasy. But what really intrigues me the most about this game is the combat. I actually dig the combat, because once I started to unlock more of the weapon slots, because you unlock 3 total, and there's basically the core gameplay is pretty much an action RPG, and they really focus on a lot of weapon switching, and you do a lot of combos and a lot of follow-ups with each other, to the point where it does truly feel like a true action game, or like a fighting game, to say the least. And I think that really got to me, like, when it comes to this sort of combat, because again, with Genshin, it did sort of have that, but it really focused on a lot of magic and elemental stuff. So like there's a lot of stuff of yourself staying still, and I understand there's other characters in the game that have different movesets, but again, you can only get these characters through the roles and all this sort of stuff if you want the cool stuff for Genshin. And but I'm just talking about its core gameplay for Tower Fantasy, even without the cool weapons in the game. Because at its core, literally, you're able to do so much of these unique combos and these unique sort of follow-up attacks with different weapons, and the constant switching you're able to do is pretty cool. And you're able to even do air combos and do these certain charge attacks. Like, each weapon actually feels very unique to its own, and I think that's what I like about like a lot of the weapons. Now, there is actually quite a few weapons, but each weapon is literally actually feel different. They all have their own style to it. And what's cool about it is you have 3 weapon slots. Eventually, you know, throughout the game, you're going to unlock these weapon slots. Once you unlock 3 weapon slots, that's when the fun begins, and you're able to actually combo a whole ton. And that's when the game really just gets addicting, when you're seeing your character do all these cool combos and all these unique tricks it has up its sleeve. And again, let me remind you, what I mean with its core gameplay is, again, without being very reliant on the whole gacha or roles or whatever. I understand in Genshin, characters could feel different or have a whole different moveset, but you have to go through its roles and all that sort of stuff. In this game, again, at its core, it's much more focused actually on its action, and you're able just to do more combos in the air or whether you're in the ground, and each weapon actually feels very unique compared to Genshin, where a lot of weapons do feel the same or to have the same type. Like, for example, if you have a sword, a lot of swords are going to feel the same. They're not going to feel different. If you have a great sword in Genshin, it'll feel different compared to a regular sword, but all the great swords are gonna operate the same. There's like different weapon types in Tower of Fantasy, but they actually make their weapons feel unique. Like, for example, there is actually 2 different weapons, like gun weapons in the game, which is the one I have, which is basically like a Gatling gun, where you're just literally spraying down enemies with this particular gun. And there's also a dual-wield pistol, which is something I'm trying to get or grind for, but I've been having a hard time trying to roll for it. I don't think they'll ever give it to me. But I've seen gameplay of the dual-wield pistol, and it looks absolutely insane, and it plays completely different compared to the gun that I have. So it's the details of this game with its combat, where literally each weapon feels completely different, and at the same time, things feel just much more fun to do with its combat. There's just much more approach. There's other little mechanics that they also added in, which I'm not going to really talk about. There's a lot of stuff in this game to actually talk about, but I've been actually really enjoying with how the combat is and how they really encourage the weapon switching in the game. I think that's really cool, and it really does show how much combos you could do with all 3 weapons. But I guess the thing what I really dislike about this game so far is really it being a gacha game. With me, when it comes to gacha games, is I think it's absolutely ridiculous to be paying or feel obligated to dump so much money for a particular role for you just trying to experience the actual core gameplay. And I do realize, like, hey, you know, this is a really big game when it comes to a free-to-play game. Like, this is potentially on the same level on like a AA title or AAA title, but when it comes to these games, it's just hard for me to enjoy, like, you could say maybe post content, or, you know, just enjoying the normal stuff that I would usually do in RPG games or whatnot, where if I'm grinding for something, it's guaranteed that I will get that weapon eventually. With here, it's more so you have to play this game and be very dedicated to either grind for so long or just feel obligated and just dump so much money to get what you want from these roles. And yeah, you know, like, it is the nature of this type of game and this type of service they are actually providing us, because this is a game as a service by the end of the day, because it's a gacha game. But man, this game is actually really fun, you know, for what it provides in this game, and there's just much of things to do and the content that there is of like what they're providing. And it just kind of sucks that, you know, it's here you're dedicated to grind so long for these certain roles, or you know, or you end up paying a lot of money for the game, which I kind of don't want to do. So fortunately, as much as I really want to get into the game, I think I'll just probably play the game very casually, and we'll see from there. Hopefully it doesn't get me, because I never, you know, paid anything for Genshin or any gacha game whatsoever. The reason why this is actually a problem is because I was actually trying to go through the game, and there's certain dungeons where it's like, I think they want you to do multiplayer and have like co-op partners, you know, in these certain dungeons, or it's basically you're going through these waves and you're just kind of wiping out like these mobs. Now the waves that I'm going through, they're about like 5 waves, and some areas are like 3 waves. So basically I'm soloing it and going through these levels like kind of easily. Not like, it's gonna take some time because the monsters they're sort of spongy, but I've been kind of going through the waves, you know, without any big problem. You know, I'm slowly defeating them one by one, but every time I actually go to the final wave, that becomes a huge issue, because they do a lot of damage, because it ends up being a endurance test, or where either I end up dying because I'm not doing enough damage and they're just overwhelming me, or time runs out, because these are timed quests as well. And this is the unfortunate part of things, because if I wanted the better gear to solo these type of levels within the game, I would have to, again, I would probably have to pay for the material to upgrade, or have just better loot overall, and or gear, I mean, and or, you know, I went through solo because I couldn't really matchmake with anyone. I don't know how the matchmaking works, or I don't know how to really find someone to really join me. So I had kind of a hard time on that. But the fact that it was possible for me to actually solo for a majority of the waves was mind-boggling, of how I just couldn't pass the 3rd wave. Yes, of course, I think people would be able to help me clear these certain levels if they were just, again, if they were with me throughout these quests, but the balancing of how it works with the 3rd level, it really shows like, hey, maybe you should pay money or do more roles to get better gear or whatever. And again, it's a disappointing feeling to have. That's what I'm trying to say, because it's like, because there's nothing you can do about it, and you kind of feel obligated to, like, if you want to finish it right on the spot, you kind of feel obligated to do the roles and pay more for the game. Again, I haven't paid anything for the game, and to be honest, the state of where I'm at, like currently right now, I'm like level 23, or by the time this is uploaded, I'll probably be around my 20s, and I haven't even finished the story yet. But like, my gear has been pretty good, and you know, the characters or roles that I got in from the gacha stuff, they've been very generous. Like, I've been having really good, well, my first few roles were like really great. I'm gonna share like my screenshot and all that, but maybe it's because they were, you know, being very generous, so they could literally make me lean into dumping in more money, so I could have this sense of like getting all these other good roles. I don't know how their gacha system works. I don't know like what the mechanics are when it comes to the gacha. I know these content creators, they know the little secrets or how this stuff works. I don't know how you guys do it, honestly. You know, much respect to them, Because, you know, again, I don't involve myself when it comes to this stuff. I play these games very casually because I don't want to invest money in them. I think it's kind of ridiculous. But respect to those people who cover content and, you know, understand all these sort of mechanics. It's quite impressive, honestly. But yeah, you know, that's always the problem with me in gacha games, is always there's some sort of gatekeeping happening. I could be completely wrong. You know, comment down below your guys' like experiences when it comes to this stuff. But personally for me, I sort of like in my situation, I sort of feel obligated to kind of resort and dump in money to just get in more materials and whatnot. And that's the problem with these type of games, especially if they make a good one, is again, there's a lot of gatekeeping content or progression of you trying to actually get the good stuff for the game, unfortunately. So that's how I feel about it. But again, if you're playing this very casually, I still recommend on playing this because it's free to play. And so far from what I experienced, I think they're very generous on you getting these roles. So yeah, I don't know how it completely works, you know, don't take my word for it because it could be completely worse later on throughout the months. But so far they've been generous to me. It's just that I haven't gotten any good roles as of recently, because again, I really do think they want me to actually pay in money, and once they see my credit card swiped into their system, that's when they're like, okay, give this guy like everything now, you know. But yeah, like so far, like it's still a fun experience. It's literally like Genshin, so I'm not gonna like describe how the game is, because if you know what Genshin is, it's literally Genshin with the MMO genre slapped on it. So that's what it is. And personally, I prefer the combat here. I noticed myself that I'm actually exploring a lot, and I really do like how they encourage exploring, because you get rewarded for exploring these certain parts of the map. So that's honestly actually really cool. But yeah, like I think the story overall, I just skimmed through it, to be honest with you. Like you know, there's some glances here and there where I try to get into it, but nah, it's just, you know, just like any other MMO except FF14, it, you know, the story is just not there for me. It just never, I just skipped through it. It wasn't as intriguing, but I find the gameplay loop pretty fun to do. But I can't wait until like it actually goes on console, or you know, in other platforms as well. I really do want my other friends who are on console, or like my relatives who are on console as well, to be on it, because right now it's still exclusive to the App Store and also on Android, along with PC users. So I hope to see it very soon on console. They're also gonna probably make a lot of money on console. I think it is actually going on console. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you for everything to this channel, and dropping a like will really help the video a lot. And for those who've actually been supporting the channel and the other videos, thank you so much. But yes, dropping a like towards the video will help a lot, and I would love to hear your guys' opinions about this game so far, especially from those who really invested their time into Genshin Impact. I want to hear your guys' opinions. I think it's gonna be very interesting to have. But it's funny how now Genshin Impact has competition with a clone of itself. It's like some sort of anime fight we're kind of experiencing right now. Tower of Fantasy versus Genshin Impact, because these are made by separate developers, and literally these developers literally clone themselves to be like Genshin in a way. Alright, y'all. Again, dropping a like will really help the video, and subscribe if you're new. Peace off. I hope everyone has a good day.